Hey, I just wanted to do a quick review on my Brute Force 750. This is a 2016 Special Edition Candy Lime Green. Since my last video, I've put about 4,000 miles on it, I think. I can't remember how many it had on my last video. Less than 1,000, I believe. It's sitting at 4307. So put a few miles on it. Had it for a little over 2 years now. Since the last time we did a video, I think I've added the halo lights and some underglows. I added this new rack bag. I think I already had the heated grips. I think that's about it other than normal maintenance. I just threw a new belt on it. And I've done, I don't know, 6 or 7 oil changes. And just got through with a couple of minor things this year. Last few weeks I've been dealing with this thing not wanting to run, and turned out that I had a bacterial infestation, I guess you'd call it, in my fuel tank. And it was plugging up everything in there really bad. I had to take my injectors out, have them cleaned. They were partially blocked, and they were 15% difference between the two. So that's not good. Thought I cleaned out, I cleaned everything out with bleach. I cleaned the gas tank out with bleach. Did everything, put a new fuel pump in there. It still was acting up. So I ended up having to go get a fuel pressure gauge, and that kind of told me the story of what was going on. The fuel pumps were okay for a minute, and then as soon as they got warm, they would die. So I started looking around, and these fuel pumps and these machines have a secondary filter or screen inside the housing, and it is impossible to see all the way. You can only see about 10% of it looking down the pressure regulator hole or the fuel pump hole. And yeah, it's just impossible to clean. At least how bad mine was. Mine was completely choked off. It looked like mildew was growing in there. It wasn't just dirt. And so after putting 2 fuel pumps in, checking them again, putting my stock one back in, 2 Quantums, I ended up having to buy a 3rd fuel pump, and I bought the entire pump. So if any of you guys out there have fuel pump issues with these, don't buy just the pump and the regulator like I did. Buy the entire housing, because it has that screen in there, and you need to be able to replace that, and the only way you can do it is buying the whole housing. VFJ has a way to flush the screen out. I didn't try that. I was so frustrated by the time I got everything figured out, I just got rid of it. And I don't think his method would have cleaned out this bacteria. It was just like caked on there. The screen was completely blocked off. I was scraping at it, what I could see of it and what I could reach with a little pick tool, and I still couldn't get it all off. So the engine was literally starving of fuel. So got rid of that, and then I went and tested it out just to make sure everything was running good. And on that trip out, I got a torn, well, actually it wasn't torn, this inner CV boot right in there just popped off the joint housing. And so I had to figure out a way to fix that. I ended up buying the All Balls kit, and the All Balls kit, the boot itself is way thicker and way more pliable, and it has a whole different band or clamp on it. And I had a hard time getting that to clamp tight enough. I could just pull on the boot a little bit, and the whole thing would just slide right off. So I had to get inventive. Ended up having to use a a grease injector to squirt grease in there and put the boot on completely dry surfaces, which is actually kind of hard to do. You get everything so messy in there. And I'm still not sold 100% on these clamps. I think the Kawasaki clamps are better, but the Kawasaki boots are way thinner and they have a bigger band, a bigger spot around the boot for the band. So my advice to anybody that's getting or that has a torn CV boot on these things, you're probably not going to be able to find anything but just these regular universal bands that you have to have a little band tool to get tight around town where you live. If you want the clamp style, which is what, the ear pinch style, which is what Kawasaki uses, you'll probably have to order online to get those. And we'll see how the all balls boot works. I like the thickness of the boot. I actually am not a fan of the Kawasaki boots. They're really thin and they're more plasticky than rubber. And I don't know why that one pulled off. I couldn't see any damage on it. Doesn't look like it got hit. I didn't run over anything that I know of. It just looks like it pulled off. These tires, these Ripsaw tires, they throw rocks really bad. It's possible that it threw a rock just right and hit that boot somehow and pulled it off of the housing. But yeah, it was a pain. It's not something, if you've got the money, I think I would just buy a whole new axle rather than dink with these boots. But I looked at getting new axles, and all the aftermarket axles, the joint on the inner part there, well, even on the outer, is not green. It's either black or brown, and I just thought that'd look funny on there. So yeah, I just decided to fix this one, and we'll see how it holds. But other than that, this machine, and those really aren't Kawasaki issues. I don't know where I picked up that bacteria. I got this machine from a guy that lived in Idaho. Didn't ride it at all. Basically let it sit in his garage for 6 or 7 years, because this is a 2016. Bought it in 2021. So yeah, I basically didn't ride it for 6 years, and so I think he got an infestation of the bacteria at a gas station up there in Idaho, and then it just sat, and I kind of had some issues on and off with it over the last couple of years, just acting like either the fuel check valve was plugged up. I ended up replacing that, because I don't like how Kawasaki does this too. They run this check valve from the tank right into the frame, and then another hose comes out up front and it vents underneath the handlebars. I don't like that, so I just put a little better check valve in here. It's an actual metal, I think it's aluminum bodied check valve. Ran my own hose through there, and so that solved that problem, and now I don't have gas going through my frame. But I thought that was the issue all along, and it was just actually gradually this bacteria was building up, kind of blocking off the screen. It really choked off the little sock filter, and so I didn't really notice, except for on the hottest days. It would just kind of act like a little bit of a stall, and turned out it was just that bacteria choking everything off. It really wasn't a Kawasaki issue. The pump actually, I think, was fine, until it worked too hard sucking fuel through that sock and through that screen. So, and then the boot, obviously, I don't know, maybe somebody at Kawasaki didn't tighten that clamp on very well, but it went 4,000 miles before it pulled off. So I don't know. I still don't know what happened there. It could have been me, could have been a rock or something. But anyhow, those are the only two things I've had issues with on this machine. It's been freaking awesome. Highly recommend these machines. They just work. Oh, and the belt. I just threw on the belt. That's the first belt I've put on it. So I took the actual stock belt that was put on at the factory off, and I measured it versus the new belt, the new OEM belt. There was like 5 thousandths of difference between the two. And my shim in my secondary clutch is one of the fat ones. So I could have gone with like a thinner shim, a medium or a thin one, and probably got another 2,000 miles out of this belt. So, geez, I mean, that's pretty dang good service, I think, for not being a wet clutch machine. And I don't really care for wet clutches, so I think just the key to these machines is when you're idling and stopped idling to slide it into neutral. Because if you're in low range or high range, that belt's just getting slid against a moving clutches, and it just sits there and kind of wears out your belt prematurely. So sliding it into neutral, and then I always use low range whenever I'm going like 12 miles an hour or under, and you get 5,000 to 6,000 miles out of a belt, I guess, on these things. I've gone through a few more than that on the prairie. I've got as many as 5,500 on the prairie. And then I have to tighten it, and then I get down to like one thin shim, and then I toss the belt. Never had any problems, just precautionary. I think when I get down to one thin shim, it's time to get a new belt. But kind of shocking, because I've got different springs, and these tires and wheels are a lot lighter than the ones on the Brute. I thought the Brute back shifting with these heavy tires was going to wear out my belt sooner, and it didn't. I mean, 6,000 miles out of a belt's pretty dang good service. So, yeah. What else can I say? This thing's been pretty awesome. It's been pretty fun. I still think I'm going to keep the old Prairie because it's just one of a kind. They're not going to make anything like that again. And in case anybody's wondering, yeah, the Prairie is faster. It's 100 pounds lighter. So, and it's got almost the same size engine, plus it's chipped and clutched and all that, and the Brute's pretty much bone stock. So, and it's got really heavy tires and wheels. They're both fast though. They'll both, in high range. If you stab it off the line, you can only give it about half throttle, or you're going to be going over backwards. So, love these machines. I think they're just the easiest machines to work on. Easiest to access everything. They're thrilling. They'll keep up with any 800,000 on the market, up to 40 miles an hour or something. And then the way these are clutched, they only go 70 miles an hour. The others, I guess, go 80, whatever, but 85. But down low where it counts and where you're going to be riding on trails, these will hang with anything. And then you have also the Japanese reliability too. So in my mind, there's only one brand that has Japanese reliability and is as fun to ride as the Ultra Bore machines, and that's these Brute Forces. They just barely redesigned this machine for 2024. I love the looks of the new ones. We'll see. I don't know. They come out with the candy lime green one. I don't know, there's nothing wrong with this one, but I do like the looks of the new ones more, but I still like the looks of this one. So anyway, that's my review. Take it for what it's worth. Very solid machine. So fun to ride. The only thing that they really need to work on is the suspension, and the ground clearance is a little bit on the low side of ground clearance, and the suspension is a little stiff. I actually like that because I'm a fast rider and I don't want sloshy, lazy boy feeling stuff. But the Can-Ams and the higher end sportsmen's, Polaris sportsmen's, they do absorb the bumps more, and they have more travel on the suspension. But really, for riding trails, I haven't seen any problems with these. You know, you can put bigger tires on them if you want more ground clearance, and then you can put a set of Elkas on them if you want and solve your suspension problems. I think they're superior to every other bike on the market in every other way. And I've looked at all of them. I've ridden all of them. I like the King Quads. They have their pluses and minuses. Grizzlies have their pluses and minuses. Actually, the new Grizzlies, I think, have more minuses than they've ever had. I wouldn't buy a new Grizzly today. I don't think I'd ever buy another single cylinder ATV anyways, but if it came down to buying a Grizzly or a Brute or a King Quad, my choice would definitely be the Brute, obviously, and then the King Quad, and then the Grizzly. So, and actually, I think I'd buy a Kodiak instead of a Grizzly. But anyhow, I digress. If you want to get a good brute force, just change the air filter, change the oil. Don't treat it like a boat. Keep the belt tight. There you go. 4,200 miles, pretty much problem-free from Kawasaki. The Prairie, on the other hand, that one over there, yeah, she's got almost 28,000 on her. And she still runs like a top. So I expect to get that many miles out of this engine too. So they're basically the same. Only this one's fuel injected. So anyhow, that's my report. Take it for what it's worth. Thanks for watching.